fact, what you're going to find if you keep following this systemic line of thinking, the concrete line of thinking, removing distinctions from blame or fault in this case, is that everybody's at fault. And in fact, everybody's at fault because everybody supports a system that must change now. And the new system will not have cars, will not have accidents of this kind, and it'll be great. Because why? Because we know that this thing and that thing are the same, and here's the problems yours causes, and look at how much problem it causes, and it's supported by a system that does this. So if we have total system change, which just so happens to involve lots of intermediate practical steps that are systems of control, then these bad things won't happen anymore. So a good example I made up a while back of concrete thinking, I could do this with critical race theory, with systemic racism. I could give you, the ideas of Marx with systemic classism, but I made up a different one called critical car theory that makes it much more understandable, which actually is applicable because Mr. Buttigieg wants us to have 0 accidents. So the question is, if let's say that through some tragedy, somebody was in a car accident, something bad happened, they were run over by a car or something out in the road today. Who's at fault? This is a very abstract thing. Well, the guy driving the car hit the guy, he's at fault. Or the guy stepped out blindly, wasn't paying attention, he's at fault. Simple. That guy or that guy, they're the two involved. We figure out the story, one of them. No. That's an abstract understanding. It doesn't understand all the causes. You don't understand. We live in a society that demands that we drive cars. If there were no cars as a historical object of our time, or no cars being driven by people, they were perfectly autonomous and never made mistakes, and nobody could walk out into the street because they can't leave their house, then nobody would get run over by cars. So there are more causes. There is an entire culture, an entire industry, an entire economy, an entire mindset and worldview, an ideology built up around the idea that people drive cars to get places.
No way.
And that we have things like streets. And so the car industry that makes the cars and sells them, the dealerships that profit from it, all the different companies that are complicit in making the parts to make the car industry work, the fossil fuel industry for fueling the cars, or I guess the windmills or whatever, but probably not, they're not blamed for anything. The windmills are off the hook. Electric car powered by windmill is okay. Also one's powered by coal, but not one's powered by uranium. Various jokes, don't take them too seriously. Every industry that supports a culture of driving cars is somehow complicit. Now, what if we find out the driver was actually taking a drink of his coffee and it distracted him, he wasn't looking at the road? Well, now there's a whole industry that produces coffee and a whole thing that leads people to believe we should be drinking coffee and sourcing coffee from different countries around the world. They're complicit in this person getting run over. What if the person that was running out into the street was going to cross the street because they wanted to go to a doctor's appointment? Nope, doctors are now implicated, the whole medical system. As a matter of fact, what you're going to find if you keep following this systemic line of thinking, the concrete line of thinking, removing distinctions from blame or fault in this case, is that everybody's at fault. And in fact, everybody's at fault because everybody supports a system that must change now. And the new system will not have cars, will not have accidents of this kind, and it'll be great. Because why? Because we know that this thing and that thing are the same, and here's the problems yours causes, and look at how much problem it causes, and it's supported by a system that does this. So if we have total system change, which just so happens to involve lots of intermediate practical steps that are systems of control, then these bad things won't happen anymore. That's an example of this concrete thinking actually for something that you can get a sense of how stupid it is, how comical it is, how farcical it is. But it's a lot subtler when they start saying that, well, racism has impacts. And even if we get rid of individual racism and we get rid of institutional racism, outcomes are still different. There must be causes for that we're not seeing. We have to find more of the causes. Well, there's an underlying culture of racism, and all of a sudden it becomes subtle and you don't see it. Preposterous with the cars, subtle and tricky with the race, because you're more susceptible to that argument.